Hello, listener. Today is March 27th, 2025. Join us on Voice Over Work as we delve into an episode where we explore self-confidence, the Spartan and special operations way to overcoming fear and building an elite mindset by Ryan Hunt. Dive straight in as the audiobook of this compelling read, available on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible for your convenience, unravels the secrets behind self-confidence with insights from elite warriors like Navy SEALs, Force Recon, Marine Raiders, Green Berets, Rangers, Night Stalkers, and members of the British Special Air Service. In this episode, the Spartans. Learn how their discipline led to unparalleled confidence on battlefields over 2 millennia ago, and special operations. Understand what these elite forces soldiers and commandos do, the rigorous training regime they undergo in U.S. military academies like West Point or Navy SEALs boot camp. The episode explores how their self-confidence comes from understanding that it's not about being fearless, rather realizing you can confront your worst nightmares. This podcast is sure to take listeners on a journey through the mindset of elite soldiers, giving insight into building and sustaining confidence in demanding environments.
One of the most important elements of success is self-confidence. A lot of studies and research have been done to fully understand the concept of believing in oneself and how it can lead to a successful life. There are many successful individuals in your personal life that you can look up to. It can be your parents who have raised you and your siblings to be good people who have stable careers. It can be a friend who has overcome alcoholism and has been sober for several years now. Or it can be an acquaintance who runs her own business and travels the world in her free time. Even when you do not know someone personally, you can just look around you and you will see a lot of successful individuals, be it a celebrity, a businessman, athlete, an artist, a career person, etc. Aside from these amazing individuals, 2 groups of people stand out when it comes to being successful in everything that they do: the ancient Spartans and the Special Operations Forces. They may have come from 2 very different periods, but the principles that they adhere to are more or less the same, which makes them highly successful groups of people. What makes the Spartans and Special Forces so unique? They are confident in everything that they do. Otherwise, they'll not be able to complete their training. But you cannot simply lump them together with famous, successful individuals such as Elon Musk or Peter Thiel. Their training is different because it encompasses physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual toughness. The successful individuals that you see all around you are admirable. But what sets the Spartans and the Special Operations Forces apart from these groups of people is self-confidence, which stems from courage. Self-confidence is one thing, but having courage is a whole different level. You'll learn more about how courage and fearlessness make a person more confident in everything that he does. That leads to success when you start reading this book. You can apply the timeless principles used by the Spartans and Special Operations Forces to gain admiration and respect from your peers. In this book, you will learn many different things about self-confidence and fearlessness in relation to the training of the Spartans and Special Operations Forces. Some important points will be discussed in this book, such as reasons why some people do not have self-confidence, while others do not have a hard time believing in themselves, ways on improving physical, emotional, and mental health, techniques on how to take action and not just become a passive observer of the lives of successful people. Useful tips to overcome adversities in your life. Ways to get rid of fear to achieve self-confidence. Tips on how to stop doing bad habits and start doing good ones. Ways to become efficient, effective, and confident, even on your worst days. Methods of defining your goals and objectives, and how to achieve them the best way possible. Ideas on how to focus on your positive traits and assets, and revealing talents that you do not know you have. Important behavior to have to achieve self-love and positive self-view. How to live a life free from fears and worries. These are just some of the things that you will learn as you start reading this book. Start your journey to a more confident life right now. Who are the Spartans? The first thing that you need to do is to learn more about the Spartans. You have most likely heard of them from books, movies, and pop culture. The Spartans were known for their self-discipline and fearlessness. They lived in Sparta, a Greek town situated in the southern Peloponnesian region. Today, Sparta is just like any other modern urban jungle, with concrete blocks of apartments and offices. Thousands of years ago, just hearing the name Sparta sparked fear, admiration, and reverence, because the place was home to the most powerful warriors in ancient Greece, the Spartans. Countless stories have been written about them because their training is something to be admired. They became successful warriors and beat even the most powerful of rivals because of the kind of discipline they had. Aside from self-discipline and fearlessness, the Spartans are also known for their humble society. Ancient Greece back then, especially in major places like Athens, favored creating sophisticated structures made of marble. Sparta, on the other hand, maintained its cultural values of simplicity and austerity, with most of its structures built from wood and other simple yet sturdy materials. They focused mostly on military training and did not bother with frivolous and luxurious things. Their life revolved around being a successful warrior society, from the time a Spartan baby was born up to his death. This is probably one of the things that made them extremely successful warriors. Their goal was clear and straightforward, and every little thing that they did was geared towards achieving this goal. Their education system, called the agoge, was all about training the little boys to become exceptional soldiers. It's like a boot camp from daycare to college. They were also taught basic arithmetic, reading, and writing, because a great warrior must also have basic knowledge of things. But the education system was mostly about building physical and mental toughness by undergoing intensive training and dangerous exercises. In today's world, the kind of training that the Spartans had to go through may not be applicable, but you can learn a lot of things from these extraordinary people. How did the Spartans train? Human rights are not a common topic back in the day, and you'll see a lot of violations in how the Spartans trained. However, you can still learn a lot from these ancient warriors in terms of the kind of mindset that you should have to be self-confident. So, what kind of training did the Spartans undergo? Training started from infancy. When a Spartan baby was born, he had to be inspected by a council to see if the baby was fit to become a soldier in the future. If physical defects were observed, the baby would be left to die or thrown at the foot of the mountain, although the latter was considered a myth by most historians. If the child was lucky, he would be rescued by strangers. If not, he would either die from animal attacks, exposure to the elements, or hunger and thirst. The lives of those babies who were considered fit to become soldiers in the future were not a walk in the park either. When they started crying, the mothers would not pick them up. They would just leave them until they stopped. The babies were also left in the dark by themselves to train to be fearless, and were bathed in wine instead of plain water. This was considered tough love, and it was so popular in ancient Greece, even in the neighboring states, that Spartan women were highly regarded as excellent mothers and nurses. The agoge education system. The state-sponsored education system in Sparta, called the agoge, started when the boys turned 7. They had to be separated from their families to begin the difficult training regimen. Although the agoge system was designed to train them to become exceptional soldiers and exemplary citizens when they grow up, the boys were still taught academics, the arts, and other subjects that are more or less military-related, such as hunting, stealth, warfare, and sports. Older students, aged 12, were forced to sleep outside with nothing to wear but a red cloak. Stealing food from others or scavenging was encouraged, but anyone who got caught would be punished, usually by flogging. These exercises taught them how to be resilient against the elements, resourceful despite having limited materials on hand, and stealthy, especially when they had to cross over enemy lines. Physical punishments and brawls. In modern days, hazing is still being practiced by certain organizations such as fraternities. It is not encouraged. In Sparta, hazing and fighting were encouraged to build tough men out of the Spartan boys. Adults and teachers would encourage fighting among younger boys, and physical punishment was practiced because it made the boys tougher and entirely removed any form of timidity or cowardice. Physical punishments made it easier for them to endure hardships, such as pain and hunger. Teasing and ridicule that often led to brawls also made the boys mentally stronger. There was even a religious ritual that involved flogging of the Spartan boys that sometimes led to death, called the diamastagosis. This was done at the sanctuary Artemis or Thea in front of an altar. This also served as a physical test for courage and pain endurance. As time went by, and Sparta was no longer considered a military powerhouse, this practice became a blood sport done in amphitheaters where spectators watched and cheered. The Spartan diet. At age 21, a student of the agoge would be allowed to eat at a military-style mess called the syssitia. This was where citizens ate their meals. You might think that there was a buffet and the food was a feast, but this was far from what they served at the syssitia. The main purpose of the mess was to prepare soldiers for war when food was scarce, which is why they served bland, unflavored, and insufficient meals. They also discouraged being overweight and unfit, so overeating was highly discouraged. The Spartans were well known for their strict diet and exercise regimen, which made them physically fit. People who were overweight were loathed and ridiculed, and were also at risk of being permanently banished from Sparta. When it comes to drinking, Spartans loved drinking wine, but drunkenness was frowned upon. In fact, they would make helots drunk and allowed them to act wildly, which they would then show to their children as an example of why getting drunk was not a good thing. The Spartan women. While boys were trained to become skilled warriors, the Spartan girls were trained to become mothers and wives of Spartan soldiers. They did not have to leave their homes and stayed with their parents. but their education and training system were just as intensive and rigorous. Spartan women shouldn't bear children and should train to become strong and tough mothers. Their subjects include physical activities such as discus throwing, javelin, gymnastics, and dancing. The girls would ridicule and shame trainees who were lagging while performing a song in front of the Spartan dignitaries. The different classes in the Spartan society. Since the society was all about the military and producing elite soldiers, it's not surprising that the highest class in Sparta was the military class called the homooi. If a man wanted to become an equal citizen, the only option was to become a soldier. Being in the military was not only a career, but it was also a way of life, and it dictated a man's place in society. It was a lifelong commitment, because a soldier could remain on duty until they reached 60. You might ask, how could this type of society survive if the only thing that mattered for them was the military? They also had trades and manufacturing, but the people who worked in these areas were considered inferior as compared to the military men. People who were not in the military and instead worked as laborers, craftsmen, and traders belonged to the lower class in the Spartan society called the perioikoi. They were free, but were considered as non-citizens, and they lived in Laconia. Meanwhile, the helots, or the slaves who worked in agriculture and were generally responsible for the food production, were the lowest class. It is interesting to note that the Spartans focused so much on building a strong military because there was always a threat of the helots, which comprised the majority of the Spartan population, revolting against the state. Marriage was encouraged. The Spartans were not discouraged to have relationships and get married, but the main reason for getting married was to conceive more Spartan soldiers. Because of this, citizens of the state were encouraged to choose partners who were physically fit and healthy, so that they would produce babies who had a higher chance of becoming excellent soldiers. Men were supposed to stay inside the military barracks until they reached the age of 30, which means that they would be separated from their wives if they married young. Marriage, giving birth, and child rearing were strictly monitored by the Spartan government. If a male Spartan could not make his wife pregnant, he had to allow his wife to be impregnated by a virile male so that they would have children. Male Spartans who were at the right age to get married but had not yet tied the knot would be subject to mockery and ridicule because it was seen as shirking from their responsibilities. Surrendering was not an option. Surrendering to their enemies was considered cowardice. It was seen as a disgrace, and soldiers who surrendered despite putting up a good fight were shamed by their peers that most of them just ended up killing themselves. Spartan soldiers were expected to fight to the death. It was either winning or die fighting. Soldiers who surrendered could only redeem themselves by later on dying in battle, if they did not commit suicide first. If you think their wives or mothers would take their husbands' or sons' sides, you are wrong, because Spartan women also had a do-or-die approach when it came to wars or battles. It was said that they would tell the line, "Return with your shield or on it," to their husbands or sons when sending them to war, which means that they should only come back home as a successful combatant or a dead soldier who dies fighting. Both of these scenarios were considered as soldiers fulfilling their duties to the state. In Sparta, only soldiers who died fighting in war and women who died in childbirth were the only ones who could have their names on their tombstones. Who are the Special Operations Forces? The Special Operations Forces are probably the closest counterpart of the Spartans in modern times. They are military units that conduct special operations, such as anti-terrorism activities, sabotage, hostage rescue, counterinsurgency, unconventional warfare, and scouting or reconnaissance. These operations require speed, stealth, special tactics, and quick thinking, which is why people who belong to the Special Operations Forces require intensive training of the body and mind. Some of the most famous Special Operations Forces in the United States are the Navy SEALs, Force Recon, Marine Raiders, Green Berets, Rangers, Night Stalkers, and Air Force Special Tactics, to name a few. These are groups inside the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force, but they undergo more advanced and rigorous to be able to perform special operations tasks. Other countries also have their elite forces, such as SAS, or the British Special Air Service, the Special Boat Service, which is the Navy SEAL counterpart in the UK, Sayeret Matkal in Israel, National Gendarmerie Intervention Group in France, the Russian Alpha Group, and the Unidad de Operaciones Especiales in Spain. How do the Special Operations Forces train? The training of these groups of soldiers is different from the training of the Spartans, but the principle is more or less the same, developing stamina, fearlessness, and mental strength to be able to succeed in military activities. Physical training. 1. One of the most important skills to master as a special operations soldier is running. You should run at least 25 to 30 miles per week if you want to avoid injuries such as knee tendonitis or shin splints. You will not only be running fast, but you will be running with a heavy load on your back. Your lungs and legs must be always prepared to run. 2. A special operations soldier will be carrying heavy loads on his back, such as backpacks with all his supplies, logs, or even an injured comrade. It is important to maintain a strong lower back. There are special exercises to strengthen the lower back, such as body drags, deadlift, fireman carries, farmer walks, and hang clean. If you are not carrying a heavy load on your back while walking, you will be standing all day, which also puts a strain on the back. 3. You might be required to swim in a body of water as part of the special operations that you have to participate in. Normal swimming activity is a great aerobic exercise, but you should also practice survival swimming, wherein you have to swim in the water with your full military uniform and combat boots on. While in battle or doing some other special operations tasks, you will not have the luxury to change to proper swimming attire. You have to swim in the water with your clothes and boots on. You might want to improve your swimming skills first by doing regular lapses in the pool before training for survival swimming. These are just some of the examples of physical training that an elite soldier has to undergo. There are many more types of exercises that focus on different parts of the body and are more difficult to execute, but these are better left explained at the boot camp if you ever decide to become a special operations soldier. Land navigation. Being able to read the map and the compass is a must if you want to pass the special operations training with flying colors. You'll not always be assigned to a familiar location. More often than not, special operations soldiers are sent overseas or to an unfamiliar territory, and they must know how to go to their intended destination or to lead their troops back to their camp. Combatives. The elite forces also have to train different forms of hand-to-hand combat, such as jujitsu. This teaches soldiers how to fight without using advanced weapons, and, at the same time, the training instills in them the values of a great warrior and the confidence of knowing that their own body is enough to win a fight against the enemy. Sniper training. This is not just about hitting your target from afar. Sniper training also involves surveillance and the use of ballistic computers. Digital photography is also taught because some situations require taking photos of subjects or areas. This may sound morbid, but they are also taught the proper use of a semi-automatic rifle to hollow out the skull of the target. The main purpose of learning how to shoot is to ensure that you do it properly. If the command is to shoot to kill, then the enemy has to be killed in one shot. There is another form of sniper shooting called aerial platform support, where the sniper has to shoot the target while in a moving helicopter. This is a more advanced sniper skill because the shooter is moving and the target can be either stationary or in motion. Explosive breaching. This is when they have to enter an enemy structure or compound by destroying an entrance. You have probably seen this done in movies, where the soldiers blow down a metal door or other blockages to enter an enemy building. Doing this is not only a quick and efficient way to gain entry, but it also adds an element of shock and surprise to the bad guys. This is a lot more than bombing a door, because it requires technical skill when it comes to deciding the kind of explosive to use. Moreover, they're not allowed to fail the first attempt, because it gives the enemy a warning that someone is trying to break in. Hello-casting and fast roping. This is another infiltration technique that the elite forces have to train for before they go to their mission. This is when the helicopter flies low over a body of water, and the soldier is expected to jump and swim to shore. This is, of course, done when the place being infiltrated is surrounded by a body of water. These days, this is not commonly being used because most of the operations and missions are done in the desert or mountains. Another similar technique is fast roping, where the soldiers have to slide down or climb up a braided rope attached to a moving helicopter for insertion or extraction purposes. This can be tricky because soldiers usually carry heavy combat equipment, which is why proper training is necessary. Mobility. Soldiers have to drive different kinds of special operations vehicles, such as armored gun trucks, ATVs, and dirt bikes. The last two are highly utilized in Afghanistan because of the kind of terrain in the area. Another type of vehicle is a tactical vehicle that looks normal from the outside, but carries combat equipment such as rocket launchers, hand grenades, and bullets. Special operations soldiers are also taught how to shoot while driving at the same time. Combat diving. Maritime special operations require proper training, which includes aquatic and subsurface infiltration. Special scuba diving equipment and rebreathers are used so that the soldiers underwater will not produce bubbles or other indications that someone is underwater, just waiting to resurface. The kind of training that they have to go through is not only about diving, but also about drown-proofing, physics, navigation underwater, physiology, operation of small boats, use of kayak and inflatable boats, and many more. Military freefall. You've seen in the movies how elite soldiers jump off an airplane with their parachutes on. This is a real-life skill that special operations soldiers have to learn. There are two types of parachuting: high altitude, high opening, and high altitude, low opening. The high altitude makes it difficult for the jumpers to breathe. That's why they have to be on oxygen during the process. The difference between the two is the distance of the soldier from the ground before deploying the parachute. The first type is when the parachute is deployed at 30,000 feet above ground, or immediately after jumping off the plane, while the second type is when the parachute is deployed at only 4,000 feet above the ground. This is difficult because the soldiers have to wear full combat uniform and are expected to fight almost as soon as they touch the ground. Rapport building. So what is rapport building exactly? Are the Special Operations Forces expected to be friends with their enemies? This is about building a strong relationship with an ally. This could be a host country or a counterpart unit whom you have to work with side by side. It's important that you get along with these people, and you have trust and good communication if you want your special operation mission to succeed. You might have excellent combat skills, technical know-how, and advanced military equipment, but knowing how to handle people, especially potential allies, is equally, if not more, important. These are the things that the Spartans of old and modern special operations forces have to go through to complete their training. The difficulty of these training exercises and completing them are a huge factor in the self-confidence of these warriors and soldiers. This does not mean, however, that you need to undergo the same training. What is important is that you focus on the things that made the Spartans and Special Operations Forces confident in what they do, and the major common factor is courage or fearlessness. But first, you have to understand the psychology of confidence by reading the next few chapters.
Thank you so much for tuning into Voiceover Work. Today, we had an incredible discussion diving deep into Ryan Hunt's book, Self-Confidence, the Spartan and Special Operations Way to Overcome Fear and Building an Elite Mindset. Today's conversation focused mainly around self-confidence, courage, building fearlessness, and understanding how these traits were ingrained in ancient Spartan warriors, as well as modern Special Operations Forces. We explored that the key to unlocking our inner strength lies not just within us, but also through embracing challenges head-on. Throughout this journey, we've discussed essential factors for building self-confidence and resilience in high-stress situations without having undergone any similar training as Spartans or Special Forces members did, though I'm not saying it isn't beneficial to learn from their mindset. It is quite evident that these warriors possess a unique sense of confidence, which they've cultivated through constant hardship and challenges over the years, something we can all aspire towards in our own lives. Now, it's time to take action and implement these valuable lessons in your life. Start by picking up a copy of Ryan Hunt's book, Self-Confidence, the Spartan and Special Operations Way to Overcoming Fear and Building an Elite Mindset. Then, challenge yourself today with something uncomfortable, maybe public speaking, or trying out that new exercise routine. And remember, listen back on previous episodes of Voiceover Work for further inspiration. Until next time, stay courageous.